there's a big problem for Italy, and the big problem for Italy is the lack of investment and the deterioration of the public finance situation. So I think it's a worrying situation with no ideas for the future from the present government.
Why Italy's economy is pushing its young people away. Italy, the land of art, history, and espresso. A country that millions dream of visiting, but fewer dream of building a life in. Because behind the postcard views and the Instagram perfect sunsets, there's a quieter story.
And Italy, which is Europe's third largest economy, is no different as the war in Ukraine casts a shadow over growth prospects. Now, Italy has unveiled a hefty package of measures yesterday, and these were aimed at shielding firms and families from surging energy costs of Eurozone's third largest economy.
One about stagnating wages, rising prices, and a generation that's slowly giving up on its homeland. Today, I want to take you through the economic reality of Italy in 2025, why so many young Italians are packing up and leaving, and what that means for the country's future.
And finally, from Europe, Italy is facing a growing exodus of young people seeking better opportunities abroad. Over the past decade, more than 1 million Italians, particularly those aged 25 to 34, have left the pristine paradise. The brain drain is driven by low salaries, lack of job recognition, and high youth unemployment.
Let's start with something simple, a cup of coffee. In Rome or Milan, a basic espresso now costs around €2, double what it used to just a few years ago. The tourist might not notice, but for the local barista earning €1,200 a month, it's another reminder that the math just doesn't add up anymore. Italy's inflation has technically slowed since its 2022 peak, but prices haven't really come back down. A loaf of bread that once cost €1.50 now sells for over €2. Olive oil, the soul of Italian cooking, jumped almost 40% in price last year after severe droughts wrecked harvests. And rent, that's where things get really painful. In cities like Rome, Florence, or Milan, a modest one-bedroom apartment costs between €1,000 and €1,200 per month. When your monthly paycheck is €1,400, well, do the math. More than half your income disappears before you even eat.
As young Italians leave, the country is staring at a population crisis where the number of elderly could soon outmatch the young. Does Italy have a plan to stop the Great Escape? Our final report explores this very question.
For many Italians in their 20s and 30s, the romantic image of Italian life, dinners on terraces, slow living, endless sunshine, turns into a daily budgeting nightmare. Now, rising prices wouldn't be so bad if salaries were rising too, but in Italy they're not, and they haven't for decades. In real terms, Italian wages today are roughly the same as they were in the early 1990s. Compare that to Germany or France, where average salaries have steadily grown.
While the streets of Rome and Milan may seem like living postcards for those on vacation, for the youth, it's a different picture. More than 1 million Italians have packed their bags and left the country in the last decade, with a whopping 1/3 of them aged between 25 and 34.
This stagnation has huge consequences. 1 in 5 Italians under 30 is unemployed. And those who do find work often end up in short-term contracts paying barely over €1,000 a month, with no benefits, no stability, and no chance to plan a future. Even university graduates, engineers, doctors, architects struggle to find secure jobs that reflect their skills. So what do? They leave. Every year, tens of thousands of Italians move abroad, to Germany, the UK, or North America. It's what economists call a brain drain. And for Italy, it's one of the biggest economic tragedies of all.
This mass exodus raises a simple question. Why are young Italians fleeing a country that seems to have everything?
The country spends years educating talented people, only to watch them build futures elsewhere. But there's an even deeper crisis brewing. Italy's population is shrinking fast, with one of the lowest birth rates in the world at just 1.2 children per woman, and one of the oldest populations with nearly a quarter of citizens over 65. the math doesn't look good. Starting a family in Italy has become almost impossible. Childcare is expensive, job security is rare, and rent devours paychecks. Even government incentives, baby bonuses, parental leave, barely make a difference. As fewer children are born, there are fewer young workers to support the growing number of retirees. That strains pensions, healthcare, and the entire social system. In short, Italy is getting older, poorer, and emptier at the same time. Now here's an irony. Italy has more beautiful homes than almost anywhere else, from Tuscan villas to coastal apartments overlooking the Amalfi.
Well, first of all, obviously they're not in control of the economy, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about revising their deficit numbers yet again. The economy is disappointing what they had anticipated. And I think
it's not just global factors at play here?
It's certainly not global factors. I mean, it's pretty clear that Italy has a lot of domestic factors that are weighing on that economy, which have been there for decades.
But for young Italians, those homes might as well be on the moon. In big cities, buying is impossible. Banks demand huge down payments and interest rates are high. In the countryside, thousands of abandoned houses are technically for sale for €1, but only if you can afford 50,000 euros or more in renovations and navigate endless red tape. For most people under 35, owning a home feels like a fantasy, so they stay with their parents. Not out of choice, but necessity. There's even a nickname for it, Mamoni, literally mama's boys. And that brings us to another invisible barrier. Bureaucracy. Opening a small business in Italy can take months. You need physical stamps, in-person signatures, and multiple approvals. While in countries like Germany or the US, it takes just a few weeks. For young entrepreneurs, this is crushing. Instead of rewarding innovation, Italy's red tape smothers it. No wonder so many ambitious Italians take their ideas and their startups abroad. Italy still has one of the largest economies in the world, the third biggest in the Eurozone, actually, but it's built on shaky ground. Public debt is around 140% of GDP, and decades of slow growth have made it vulnerable to every global shock, from recessions to pandemics. When the economy slows, companies stop hiring. They rely on short-term contracts and avoid giving permanent jobs. That leaves workers unable to buy homes, start families, or invest, which in turn keeps the economy slow. It's a vicious cycle. Even Italy's proud public services are feeling the pressure. Healthcare funding is stretched, especially in the poorer south where waiting times for specialists can last months. Education isn't spared either. Universities are underfunded and many professors and researchers leave for better opportunities abroad. And just when you think the economy couldn't face more challenges, there's the climate crisis. Rising temperatures, droughts, and wildfires are reshaping Italy's landscape. In 2023, the country saw its worst drought in 70 years, devastating crops and pushing food prices even higher. At the same time, political instability remains constant. Since World War II, Italy has changed governments more than 65 times, roughly one every 13 months. That means policies rarely last long enough to make a difference. Reforms collapse before they can fix anything, and citizens lose faith in the system altogether. So, is Italy doomed? Not at all. For all its economic struggles, Italy's greatest asset remains its people. Their resilience, their creativity, their sense of community. Family lunches still matter. Traditions still thrive. But unless the country finds a way to reward its young talent and make life sustainable again, it risks losing the very generation that could rebuild it. Italy might still be paradise for tourists, but for those who call it home, the challenge now is making paradise livable again.